Deuteronomy, or Devarim 10, verses 12 through 13. And now, Yisrael, what is Yahweh your Elohim asking of you, but to fear Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in all his ways and to love him, and to serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and all your being, to guard the commands of Yahweh and his laws which I command you today for your good. Questions we will be addressing from this verse today.
What role does fear play in our lives?
What role should fear play in our lives as believers in, disciples of Yeshua Messiah?
And lastly, how can mentally wrestling with our understanding of fear lead us to a life more abundant in Messiah? Let's find out. Okay, let's read our verse one more time. Deuteronomy 10:12 through 13. And now, O Israel, what does Yahweh your God ask of you but to fear Yahweh your God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve Yahweh your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Verse 13. And to observe Yahweh's commands and decrees that I am giving you today for your own good. When I read this, sometimes another way of saying this, I guess, is we miss the forest for the trees. We miss the obvious. And we get into the deep, thick stuff, and we forget the obvious, basic stuff. And we're all guilty of it at one time or another.
Sure.
And it's the first command given to us in this verse, to fear Yahweh your God. We get so bent on the other stuff, but we forget the fear element. We're supposed to fear him. And what does that mean to fear him?
So let me back you up a second. What version were you reading from? I'm curious. Do you know?
This is NIV. I use NIV, ESV. I use lots of different versions.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up, and I was reading out of the scriptures, is that fear was a word that was common in both. And there were some different words, as you may have picked up, that, serving and it was something else on this version. And it seems like, wow, fear is an important thing. Yet, like you say, we kind of skip by that. Maybe because we're afraid of it.
Yeah.
We have a fear.
Afraid.
The wrong fear, maybe.
Right.
But we have to know what it is, what fear is, before we even go on. Because if we don't define the term, how do you understand and talk about the term?
Right. One, as we mentioned earlier a little bit, it's like we're to fear Yahweh, but not to fear man, not to fear other things. So how do we differentiate? How do we fear Yahweh? And it's like fear, because you're not supposed to fear God because he loves you.
That's the mindset people have.
Right.
Because he's a loving God.
Oh,
and he's
caring.
He
wouldn't hurt you.
He wants your best.
He wants your best. Right. But at the same time, I want the best for my children. But they also know there's a respectful fear that has to be given forth. And I think that's what we forget is he wants that respect. And it's a fear. When I was growing up, maybe I'm old-fashioned, okay? I am.
I'm still growing up, so you're way ahead of me, brother.
I am too, actually. That's my wife. But the whole element of growing up, when my dad, dude, if I saw him pull that paddle out, dude, I knew what to do.
Are you saying spare the rod, spoil the child?
Well, I wasn't spoiled, that's for sure.
There's an element, and that could be a whole conversation.
That is.
Yeah. That we could pull off to the side. But I see what you're saying. There's maybe a reverence that you had for your father out of fear of the pain.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a perfect way. And it was fear of the pain because I knew what it was going to present. Now, it wasn't him being mean. He knew what I needed, And so, of course, at that time, I'm thinking he's just a mean kind of guy. But at the same time, if I obeyed my father, I got rewards, And so the same thing. It's like the father's going to, he even says it, if we obey him, he brings blessings. If we disobey, there's curses. Those things it's a natural flow. And so in order for us to walk in his blessings, which he wants us to do, what's he going to do? He's going to try to correct us and keep us in line, and to make sure we don't fall in those curses.
Okay, so going back to, what fear is, if you go out into the interweb, go out into that electronic know-it-all area. At least here's one definition.
Okay.
An unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. So the pain, that matches up with what you were saying. But an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous.
See, that goes into the fear of man.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, can't our Creator be dangerous? I mean, let's face it, he's wiped out people, said, take them out.
Good point. Good point. No, I'm with you. And so, yeah.
Why?
Well, if they didn't fear him, that's what came about.
Okay, so the lack of fear, oftentimes I think here's what fear is, but what is fear not?
Right.
It's not danger, unless you're thinking of it as, I'm outside of his will. That's a dangerous place.
Extremely dangerous place.
That's an unsafe place.
You're outside of his protection. And that goes back into the element of saying, that's why he steers us to be walking in his ways, so we will not walk in the curses. Because if you're outside of his will, well, you're going to be walking in the curses.
So then we also have to have an eternal perspective more so than a worldly. And maybe that's another one of those definitions where we look at it and we go, oh, I'm afraid of man. That's a world. I'm afraid of there was a poll, and the most fearful thing, what do you think the most fearful thing people had? 60% of the people said this. Number one fear.
What?
What do you think? Any guesses?
No.
Public speaking.
Are you kidding me?
No, that was the number one fear. It's like, wait a minute.
Funny.
There's wars out there. We got all sorts of things going on as we record this that we don't want to deal with, governmentally, etc.
Right.
Public speaking. So then the question becomes, why? What's so scary about public speaking?
Right. Making a fool of yourself.
Exactly. Embarrassment. So if I'm embarrassed... What's that?
Because I've done that many times. So.
Oh, yeah. I finally got old enough where I didn't care. Because I do that all the time. That's just the norm.
Right, exactly. Accept it, people.
No. So, yeah, we got this embarrassment thing. Okay, so let's keep digging deeper. Why are we embarrassed? Pride. Ego. Which seems to be an acronym, so I've heard. This is not original. Easing God out.
Whoa, I like that.
So
That's interesting.
I'm coveting being like him.
Right. You want to be put on this pedestal and not him.
Exactly. So I want everybody to say, boy, Gus really knows how to speak. Look, without being embarrassed.
Yes.
So ego.
Boy, that's interesting. I like that. I don't like it, but it's interesting.
I understand. True. So should I have a... Well, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking, because that goes into you said something, and I can't think of the proverb, but it says the fear of man will prove to be a snare. Okay? And so the whole element of the ego element, it's like you're fearing what man thinks of you. It kind of goes into that. It can prove to be a snare to your life, because what? It's going to snare you out from God's will. Then that verse can be interpreted so many different ways, I understand. But as you said, I was just thinking of how our fear of man, how they think of us, what they're going to do to us if we don't submit to this or whatever. And especially in today's world, in this situation of how do I say it without being politically incorrect? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, be politically incorrect.
Okay.
No PC here.
Yeah, the whole COVID thing, the vaccine thing. I mean, I get the fear that they're promoting, but I don't subject myself to it. They're trying to get people to submit to them, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that.
So you look around and the world around us is fearful.
Oh, man, full of fear. And that's how they're driven. And I think that's how, in my opinion, granted, but I think that's how governments get their agendas pushed. They promote fear.
You create a panic of fear, and then you fill the need.
You create the environment to where the people will want what you want to give them.
That sounds an awful lot like easing God out, but at a more corporate level.
Absolutely.
So now it's not personal, even though it's made up of people. I have a small pet peeve, since we're not being politically correct. People will say that society did this or society. I'm sorry, society's made up of the people.
That's right.
So we each need to count, and whether it's us taking a stance against fear, unfounded fears, or fears that are not of Yah,
Right.
or taking a stand and say we should fear reverentially the Creator of the universe, we need to be bold.
Yeah.
I'm off my mountaintop. Let's continue.
How do you become bold when you've been trained to be fearful? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
we've been brought up to trust the government, trust us, and not trust God. And not to say not trust God, but put more trust in your government in this. Trust what we say, trust what we do, and that's where I see we're at. And I go back to this verse we've read at the beginning, where I see lots of people trying to obey God, trying to do what they think is right. But is it founded on fearing Him and Him alone? You know what I'm saying? And because I think if we fear Him alone, that would alter many of the decisions that we make.
Okay, and so when you say fear Him alone, I start to think of different aspects of that. I fear the consequences of Him getting the paddle out because I didn't follow.
Okay.
There's one aspect. I fear, I guess these are all consequences. I fear for my children not teaching them in His ways, sharing His commands, His word with them, and demonstrating that with my life because of eternal consequences once again. I wonder if there's any other aspects of that fear that would be different, because that sounds like a cause and effect kind of thing.
Right.
Going towards reverence. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I was thinking of some Proverbs. I looked them up a while ago. It says, to fear the Lord is to hate evil.
Okay.
And then this is wisdom talking, I think, at this point. This is Proverbs 8:13. It says, I hate pride and arrogance, evil behavior, and perverse speech. But the whole point is, to fear the Lord is to hate evil. That's the beginning of fear. Okay. Yahweh, to fear Yahweh.
Okay.
And so I'm just looking at different things here. I'm trying to ponder different thoughts where we're going. And the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
Okay, so we have this aspect of do not fear and fear. So we've got almost diametrically opposed, right?
Exactly. So to fear Yahweh and not to fear man.
Right. Or different attributes of men, perhaps? Because one of the things I went through is it took a look at what is that do not fears.
Okay.
Do not fear, do not be discouraged. Devarim or Deuteronomy 1:21. Do not fear them. That's man.
Yes.
Also in Deuteronomy 3:2. Do not fear or tremble. Amalek in Deuteronomy 25:18 did not fear Yah. And then he goes on to say, especially in Yeshayahu or Isaiah, do not fear, for I am with you. I shall help you. I will warn you. I shall redeem you. I am with you. So that's contrast is very interesting to me.
That is interesting.
Do not do these fears, but do these fears.
Right.
And so could our English word be a little generic, a little bland in the explanation?
There's so many English words that are generically put into these different translations, I know. And this is a great way of putting it. Yes, I could easily say that. Well, and the thing, too, is letting that fear in you.
Letting that fear in you. Say that a different way.
Other people. Are you going to let the fear in you, or are you going to keep the fear out of you? Of man.
Okay.
I'm talking of the man element here.
Okay.
I was a quote was given to me one time. I think I even wrote it down here. Yes, it says, ships don't sink because of water around them. Ships sink because the water gets inside of them. Moral of the story: don't let that which is around you weigh you down.
what came to mind is, I'm not afraid of falling. It's just the ending where I land. That's what I'm afraid of, right? The falling's
right.
okay. It's just that
That's
ultimate.
actually kind of fun falling, maybe sometimes. Yeah?
Maybe, I don't know, not for me. I'm not the skydiver type.
Okay.
But it can be rational too. I mean, fear is a good thing. Think
Right.
about it, because y'all
keeps
put
you
that
from
into
doing
us.
stupid things.
I didn't, I stay away from the edge of the plane because I'm sorry, I don't want to fall out.
That's
of it.
right.
Or other things that we should be is that reverential? Fear that help us. I should stay out of that situation. I should flee from temptation.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be a type of fear that's the good kind of fear?
Agreed. And as I even mentioned, like the falling can be fun, but it's the end that gets you.
Yeah.
And that can go with temptation too, like you said. I mean, dude, the apple looked, or whatever fruit it was, looked good, but it had a strong bite at the end, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we have that fear of sin to keep it away from us, you'll never have the bite at the end, if you will.
I like that pun. You meant that. I like that.
I didn't. I mean,
yeah, that was really good. Oh, you did. I knew you did. So
That's funny.
So our people, us, Israel, Yahweh's people,
Mm-hmm.
are to be fearful of Him,
Mm-hmm.
and in reverence. What does that look like? It sounds so nebulous, Steve. It's okay, fear, sure, but let's get practical.
Well, I keep thinking back. Practical. Okay. Now, I'm sure I've mentioned this before somewhere along the way, but when I was growing up, we went to, when I was really, really young,
Mm-hmm.
we went to a United Pentecostal church. And I was 3-4 years old at this point. And I was typical Steve, okay. Back then, not today, but back then, okay. But Dad would always have, you remember those ping pong paddles, but they had the ball?
Oh,
on it?
yeah.
Okay, well, Dad, yeah, okay. And well, he just ripped the ball off of it. And he always had one of those in his back pocket.
Oh.
That's all he had. And for one reason, for Steve. Not for Sheila, not for Keith, not for Greg. No, Steve. Okay.
He didn't call it a ping pong paddle. It was a Steve paddle?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Okay. But I mean, I knew that was for me. That kept me in line. So all I'm saying, you're trying to say,
Okay.
how do we put this in realistic?
Uh-huh.
I try to look at my life. I'm going, well, that kept me in line. Okay. The fear of, I don't want that on me. Okay. And so, and the fear, I want that phrase given to me. It says, fear does not stop death, it stops life. Okay. But that fear created life for me because it kept me happy. It kept me from doing stupid stuff. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
it kept the paddle from hitting my rear. Okay. So,
okay. So along that line then,
okay.
there had to be an activating event for that fear to make you dread the paddle.
Because it happened before.
It got you.
That's
Oh,
right.
because it doesn't just hang in the wall or go in the pocket.
No.
And then it's like, whoa, I really fear that paddle. No, you have to experience
Yes.
the velocity of the of the paddle.
Velocity, yes.
We
That's
had
a
an
great
oak.
way of saying it.
We had an oak stick.
Oh, did you?
Not like a round branch, but it was like 1.5 inches by 1 inch, and it was
Mhm.
it was an oak stick. It
Yeah.
hung inside the closet, and after we experienced it a time or two, and I was a slow learner, so it might have been 3 or 7, and all my mom and dad would have to say is, first of all, the eyebrows, the look.
Yes.
Go get the stick. Oh, I'll do whatever you say.
Right.
Too late, dude. Go get the stick.
Yep.
They didn't say dude back then. But
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny you say that because I forgot about the stick because the paddle was for church. Okay, when we would go to church.
Oh.
But at home, see, my dad always worked nights, so it was just my mom, pretty much. And so, well, you can get away with more with mom, right? But even then, you push her to the limit. Well, she would always get the yardstick.
Oh.
3 feet long.
Oh, you can get some real torque
Oh,
going
not
on that
only
thing.
that, and she doesn't have to get right on you. She just get 3 feet within you, and she's got you.
Doesn't matter how fast you are.
That's right.
Yeah, I get it.
So, but you're right. It's you had to experience it to reverence it.
Yeah.
I that's a great point. But okay.
What?
Now, I think of other children, and if now granted, because I had seen my siblings. I was the youngest of 4. That explains a lot, right? And so, But I saw them get in trouble in different times. So I go, I know not to do that.
Okay.
You know, now I did the things they didn't do but because the things I saw them do, I learned, and so we can learn from other people's mistakes. Excuse me, but we have to be. Are we going to learn from other people's mistakes?
Oh, I don't know if anyone has had this same experience, and I'll assume you weren't like this, but I know of younger children in the family that, understanding that fear, they would get their older siblings in trouble because they could manipulate the little one. Wah! What did you just do to your younger brother?
Right.
And I think fear can be used to manipulate, as we're seeing in the world around us.
I wasn't that smart, but that's okay.
Yeah. So it just came naturally, is what you're saying. So Yah doesn't use fear to manipulate us.
No.
But he does use it to instruct us.
Yes.
You know, what's it saying? What is it? Telling Psalm, I'd have to find it, but fear is the beginning. Maybe it's in Proverbs. I'm forgetting. Fear is the beginning of wisdom.
Yes.
I got it written down here somewhere.
Yes, me too. Yep. Well, while you're looking that up,
Yeah,
or thinking of it, it's a great point because he doesn't use it to manipulate. Manipulate is to get his way, to force it on someone else. He will not force his ways on us. He will instruct us to encourage us. But whenever we harden our hearts so much, he's going to say, you know what, have your way. I'm not going to force it. And he does that, you know.
That's great. That reminds me of like when Israel said, we want to have a king.
Right.
Is that Yah's perfect will for them to have some man be king over them? I'm not seeing that.
Because he didn't want it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you want a king. It is good. Well, is it good because he approves it or he allowed it? Right? So, and there's a consequence that comes with that. Yes, it is Psalm 111:10.
Okay.
And this is out of the Scriptures version. The fear of Yah is the beginning of wisdom.
Yep.
It's just the beginning.
Just the beginning.
It isn't all.
Right.
So we have to wrestle with what fear is. And I think part of the problem, and I know topically maybe I'm jumping around into what is it, what isn't it, but there's this thing called the negativity bias that we all have in us. Psychologists talk about that. And so we tend to look at things at the negative first. And that negativity bias can, as we said earlier, be a positive thing. Don't step in front of the car coming down the road.
Right.
I'm afraid I'll get run over. Okay, cool. I don't do that. Sometimes impulse takes over fear or overshadows fear, and we get ourselves in trouble.
True.
And we have issues. Isn't it interesting how, going along that line, that negativity bias where we are bent toward the negative tends to escalate us and emphasize things, especially digitally, where fear is magnified on the internet. My goodness, you know, this is thing's going to happen. Everybody goes, oh,
right.
You know what that said? And we all know the internet's 100% true, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
Eh?
So it magnifies, and it really does affect what our actions will be, even if we don't realize it. I'm afraid of something, even subconsciously, I'll avoid that.
Yep.
Or I'll find a way to excuse it.
And we get influenced far more than we understand, I think, when it comes to fear, you know.
And that's the flesh.
See, and that takes us to modern day again.
Okay.
I mean, look at the fear that's being promoted. You know, all this, it just makes me sick as a dog when I see people being, how do I say it, corralled, thank you, because of fear. And, you know, when we look at something that has a 99.6% survival rate, and it's even more than that from the studies I've done, because that's just with how they manipulated the numbers.
Sure.
You know, it could be 99.8, if not more, you know, of those who get it. Okay. But yet, fear is driving people to the vaccine. Now, is it evil? I don't, there's so many things that I know that people have gotten it. Okay, fine. I'm not going to judge someone who's done it, but I can tell you right now, for me, I'm not getting it. But when I look at they're doing so out of fear. Yeah. Not out of, well, let's find out for myself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that's when you trust what's given to you on the news, that concerns me.
Uh-huh.
Knock
Mr.
on wood.
Butria, we just heard that you're not going to take the vaccine. We all have to make our stand according to what we see in Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have that litmus test in our being,
Yeah.
so we don't have to stop and think about it. It's muscle memory. We say, this is what the Word says.
Yeah.
This is who He wants us to fear,
Yep.
Him,
Mm-hmm.
and how that plays out in our lives.
Right.
Or else we do succumb to that negativity bias, that fear of the circumstances around us, which is so hard because we're living in this world.
Yes. Let's be real about it. Let's look at the element of they're talking about a new wave coming through and all this kind of stuff. And now they're talking if you don't, in certain countries, if you don't get the vaccine, you're going to go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to, and they're already looking at different ways of keeping people out of, grocery stores and this kind of stuff.
You
If
lose
don't-
your job.
Yep, if you don't have the vaccine.
Yep.
I've known several people they got like a few more weeks or whatever, as of time of this recording anyway. If they don't get the vaccine, they're going to lose their job.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm not in that position. So it's easy for me to say, well, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But they're in it.
Yeah.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now that's totally different. And so I respect them. I pray for them. But it's like at the same time, I pray that they don't give in. Now, it's easy for me to say that because I'm not the one losing my job.
Right.
And so I will never judge somebody because if I'm not in their shoes, how can I judge them?
Mm-hmm.
That's not my point. But my prayer is that keep the verse we did at the beginning here.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the fear of Yahweh first.
Mm-hmm.
If Yahweh gave you a job, can He not give you another job?
Yeah.
Now I know that's easy for me to say because I'm not in the shoes, but it's just so I don't belittle anyone who disagrees with me on this element.
Huh. It goes back to that in the world of the world.
Yep.
And do I really believe that eternity is real? Because
Right.
that will change how I live my life, but even more specifically, how I will fear or not.
Right.
I may be a little bit anxious. I may be a lot fearful for my family, for the how are we going to put food on the table? Where am I going to buy? Whatever the case may be that way.
Mm-hmm.
But with an eternal perspective, this is such a small part of the whole thing. If we really, really believe it, maybe that's what that fleshly fear boils down to. That we don't really, really believe that eternity is real. Well, what if? What if I'm not going to make it? I wonder if there is some root in that.
I guess so. I struggle seeing that, but I see what you're saying. To me, when I look at it, it's always the fear of the present and the future, and that's what drives us.
Uh-huh.
And what was the prophet? I can't remember who it was who got fed by ravens.
Was it Eliyahu, Elijah?
Maybe I think it was Elijah now. But I mean, if he fed his prophets that way,
Yeah.
dude, if we are doing our best and living for Him, well, he fed His people with manna. He split the Red Sea. I can give you so many instances where the Father has provided for us when we had no idea what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last couple of years, we've had some financial situations come up, and next thing you know, here comes this massive blessing, and it kept us from going in debt more, and then now we're out of debt. Hallelujah!
Mm-hmm.
We prayed to stay out of debt, but it's like there's things that we look at each other. What are we going to do? I go, I don't know. I said, let's just pray, and then let's just pray the Father provides, and that's a scary situation.
Yeah.
Because with what we have, if people don't support us, we don't make money. So we're done.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing more we can do but then to say, let's just pray and hope and pray it comes out. And I guess I think it's taught me, or I should say teaching, to trust Him more, and to know that He's in charge, and nothing comes our way that He first doesn't see.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's helped me over the recent years. When something happens that catches me off guard, it didn't catch Him off guard.
Mm.
He knew what was coming. I didn't know. And so there's no need for me to fear because he's not fearing about it. And if I can have that faith and trust, and I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm still learning in it and growing in it, I got a long way to go. But the whole point is, if he's not fearing about it, why should I fear about it?
Because that might seem to elevate you over him. Well,
Yeah.
Well, I know you're the creator, but I'm going to fear about it because you don't know what I'm going.
That's right.
When you were talking about that, it brought me back to eternity.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the future as much as we try to.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, Steve, I don't know if I'm going to be here 5 minutes from now.
Right.
But there's a probability. So we deal in probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what I've experienced in the past, it's probable I'll experience that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not the same person today that I was yesterday.
That's right.
I pray
Right.
toward him.
Right.
I don't want to go the other way.
Yeah, right.
So is it our fear, our concern for not being able to control the future that creates the fear of those circumstances around us? I don't know if I'm going to eat. I don't know if I'm going to have my house. I don't know if I have my job.
Right.
Somebody come try to jab me with a needle. Whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
I can't control that.
Right.
And so it's giving up control, which goes right back to what we were saying earlier, easing God out,
Right.
taking control of the situation.
Yep. And it's funny too. You discussed that. It was like not knowing the future. When you look at Joshua, you see the angel of the Lord, which I believe was Yeshua. He appears to Joshua, and 3 times he tells him, "Do not fear."
Mm-hmm.
Now, Joshua has not seen one enemy yet. He hasn't seen the giants. He hasn't seen the walls that are going to crumble. He hasn't seen all that he has to overcome. And here he is. So he's thinking, let's go fight some people. Let's go win,
Uh-huh.
But Yahweh is telling him 3 times, don't fear. I would think by the 3rd time he's going, dude, I get it. Okay, I'm not going to fear. But then when he gets out there, he goes, ooh, now I see what he's saying. Don't fear. Now he understands why he did don't fear. So I think there's the same element. We have to reassure ourselves in the Word more and more every day to not fear, because that which we're going to face out in the world is going to give us every cause and every reason to fear. Does that make sense?
Yes. And it draws me back to what you said about being bold, because we're supposed to be meek.
True.
But meek and boldness. Sometimes, isn't it interesting how he'll divide to multiply? He'll use the least of these for the, that whole dichotomy, it seems like to us, is just tipping the world upside down.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Moshe tell Joshua, Chazak, be strong, ve'amatz,
Right.
And I think he says that 3 times. I could be wrong. I'll have to check it.
Right.
Same thing. So he's girding him up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got the don't be afraid part later on.
Right.
So they're,
same thing.
Yes, really trying to work on him,
Right.
help him to understand. Then you get into the heat of the battle. Wow. We have, how do you even say it? I mean, it sounds so trite. We have to rely on the Lord.
I know.
Yes, we do, but it just comes out of our mouths so easily.
I know. And it sounds so cheap.
It does, yeah.
I know.
Even though it's so true.
I know.
So is that a paradigm that we're locked into because that's how we've been brought up? We're in the world. And yet, isn't it interesting? Who is it, Paul or Peter? I forget. That says that Torah is spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that Paul? I think in Romans
that's
maybe.
Paul. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The law is spiritual.
Okay, and that's at enmity with our flesh, with the carnal being.
Yep.
So if
that is in Romans 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
That part. Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, we need to be. There again, it sounds. As soon as I start to form the words, it sounds like, of course you can say that, but until you're there,
I know.
we need to be outside of the flesh. We need to be in the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Torah is spiritual. We need to be in obedience.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, does that bring a boldness and a confidence in the world we fear, or against it?
I would say confidence. Boldness, when I think of boldness, arrogance is the next word it seems to follow. But confidence is different.
Okay, I agree with that. I'm on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I can see the boldness, but I mean, it's more of it's a confidence, it's a trust.
Mm-hmm.
You're relying on Him, which goes back to you're not fearing anything else because the fear is on Him. It's like this. It's like when you think of, when you know you got your big brother behind you, you're not fearing anybody. Because why? You know big brother's behind you, but yes, so if you know you got Yahweh the Father standing behind you, you fear nobody because you're fearing Him. Does that make sense?
It does. And it made me, I really enjoy this sharpening aspect of Iron to Iron because if I'm just all by myself, I get very myopic. I have my own little thoughts, and I could be way off in left field. And
Me
you
too.
hold me accountable and give me other things to think about.
Same here.
So another brother, just recently, up in Missouri, Stan, he said, Gus, it's like this. There's this show out there, this television or movie, I don't know what it is, I haven't seen it. And they're in war. And there's the sergeant that just seems to be able, he's made of brass or, iron. He just goes through everything and it doesn't bother him. And the guys are kind of afraid of him. And finally, somebody works up the courage to say, what's the deal? I mean, this stuff doesn't seem to affect you at all. And he says, I go in with the attitude, I'm already dead. Now look at the spiritual application of that biblically.
Yes.
We die to ourselves. I'm already dead.
Yeah.
I got to put that stuff behind me.
Yeah.
And if I'm already in eternity in my head, as far as, I don't want to be confusing, but that's the goal. It's not like I'm just going to, let everything happen. I'm going to eternity.
Right.
No, but we live for the eternity and helping other people have that vision from Him.
Right.
Not from us. Then I've got a different perspective.
Yep.
And it's got to be so ingrained in me. Part of my DNA.
Die to yourself daily. Take up your cross daily and follow me. If we do that, nothing else matters.
How do we help each other do that?
I don't know. Tell me.
I
mean...
Well, I was up on the mountain.
It goes back getting ourselves drenched into the Word.
Okay.
I mean, what more can you do but to get in the Word? It's the basics. Read, pray. If we are doing that, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I know like it goes back to, it sounds so cheap. We've heard it all our lives. But when we really ask ourselves, am I reading and praying the way I should be? I think if we were all honest, at least I can only say for me, I guess, I'm not. I struggle with it, just like anybody else. And for me, I can be guilty of making my studies be my time alone when it shouldn't be. That's studying into the Word. I should still be spending time with Him, and just to hear what He says instead of what I want to find. Yeah, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So you had something come to you.
I did, and it kind of ran in one ear and out the other. There's not a lot in between, so it's really easy. But it did remind me, one thing it did remind me of is, and I'll use a sports football story. Not that I'm, into it and all that sort of thing, but it's just, okay, so it is what it is. So this football coach, I think it was in high school, he said, statistically, I'm just going to look at the statistics. And statistically, if teams go for the first down when it's fourth down, so it's their last opportunity, instead of punting or kicking the ball away, if they go for it, statistically, they get the first down. So he, in his team, in high school team, outlawed fourth down punting. He says, okay, we are not going to kick the ball. Oh, man, I tell you, the parents were angry because at first they didn't get it, and you didn't get the first down. And I guess he was down south where football's a huge deal. And not that it isn't elsewhere.
Right.
But then they started winning because statistically they would get more first downs. And it increased to the point where they went from, I don't know, and I'm just going to say it was like last place or close to the bottom, to winning the state championship every single year. And the point of it is he had pro coaches come and talk to him. Say, boy, what is this? How do you do this? It's just statistics. Just go for it rather than punt. And they said, yeah, I really should do it, but if I don't make it, if our team doesn't make it, what are the fans going to say? What are these people going to say? And it goes back to the embarrassment or the shame. Because didn't Yeshua say something about, if you're ashamed of me, I'll be ashamed of you. Luke 9?
I have to go back and find it.
Yeah, I think it's Luke 9. So being ashamed of, being embarrassed, being fearful of what others say at a higher level than what our Creator says or wants us to be like. You're giving me a lot to think about.
Well, me, same here.
I thought we were supposed to come up with answers, man.
Let's get more questions.
I think that's a goal. I
Well,
thoroughly like that.
And I got a thing here that says, "Don't let fear control you. Take hold of the courage and take stand for what is right." And because if we let fear control us,
Mm-hmm.
then we're not letting Yahweh control us, or at least instruct us, following His ways.
I think this might have been David
Okay.
in Tehillim or Psalm 56:3. In the day I am afraid, I trust in you.
Hmm.
So is trust the opposite of fear?
I would say, yeah. And I got a note here somewhere. I wrote it down. We think of the word fear. It's like trembling or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But we can say, isn't worry the same thing?
It's like fear version 1,
Yeah.
early fear.
Yeah, or and then we Christianize it. Well, I'm just concerned. It's like it's the same thing.
An end around.
Yeah, exactly. And so and I get it. I mean, trust me, I get my mom and me sometimes, and like it's that same element for my children.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's like you're concerned. Here I am. You're concerned for me. But it's still a form of fear. And I get it. We want to do what's right. We want to make sure we're whatever and
Yeah.
protecting them and stuff. But there's also comes a time where you have to simply trust.
Mm-hmm.
That Yahweh's going to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
Even on my best day, what can I do? I can only do so much. Ultimately, He's one protecting us.
Yeah. You can't do the future. You can only do where you are right now, right day, and make every decision count.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're all guilty of, succumbing to anxieties or worries or fears, it's all around us.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we have to go against the grain. That's what He calls us to do. We're
I know.
supposed to be peculiar.
Right. To go against it all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty enough out there going against us.
Wow. Well, this has been great.
It has been good.
So we need to do this more often. We all need to do this more often.
We all in the body of Messiah need to do this more often.
Mm-hmm. Which part of this?
All of this, talking about one another, talking about the things, sharpening one another. I mean, kicking out ideas and not shooting each other down.
And not being afraid to be wrong. And let's just have the conversation. Let's just in love and compassion say, what's your view on this?
Amen.
You may have a different opinion.
Right.
That's okay.
Right.
Just like we've got some different opinions. I saw sneaking in there a little bit during our conversation. Nothing that was really big,
No.
earth-shattering.
Right.
But just different ways of looking at things that can also be a challenge.
And that's how we grow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been good.
It has.
Amen, brother. It's been fun.
I love you.
Next time.
All right.
Shalom.
Shalom.